Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon to this voluntary recording initiatives event organised by the CIEEM Scotland Committee. For those of you that don't know a huge amount about CIEEM, we're a professional body representing and supporting studying and practising ecologists and environmental managers. We've got over 6,000 members, of which 640 are in Scotland. CIEEM members work for a wide range of employers in various ecological and environmental management roles in local government, statutory agencies, non-governmental organisations, like many of those we'll hear from today, consultancies, science and research, and business and industry. And actually, it's this unique mix of CIEEM's members, which is its core strength and makes networking a particularly valuable opportunity. We're really fortunate in Scotland to have a very active geographic section, and the committee, made up all of volunteer members, organise lots of talks, field trips and social events every year, as well as our annual Scotland conference, which this year will be in October on greening our grey, so do look out for that. We have three of our committee with us today who have organised this event: Ian Addington, Elaine Anderson and Claudia Gebhardt. So I'd hand over now to Ian, who will tell you a little bit more about why we're doing this event and will introduce the speakers. So handing over to you, Ian. Thank you.
Voluntary initiatives are a fantastic way for you to upskill. You get to know more about surveys, your species identification improves. And as Annie mentioned before, a great opportunity for you to network. There are many people from different backgrounds involved in these initiatives, and it may be that you end up working very closely with a possible employer in the future. But of course, the big aim for these initiatives is that you get to contribute to ecology. And we have got 6 speakers today, five of them who will be presenting, one of them who has provided a recording on a number of groups. So if you're interested in botany, bats, birds, invertebrates or red squirrels, then you can sign up and get involved. And I would caveat that with you don't have to sign up to them all. Be very strategic, just focus on the species or the group that you are really passionate about. Time is short when you are developing your career and your CV, so don't overcommit and spend some time on initiatives that really matter to you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm now going to hand over to the speakers as well. Just before I do, Elaine Anderson will be monitoring the chat. So as Annie said, if you have a question you want to ask, put it on chat. Elaine will collate them based on a common theme and for specific speakers, and we will get to them at the end. Okay. So first up, we have Laura Carter-Davies, who is the Managing Director of Echoes Ecologies, who is an experienced ecologist and covers many surveys for many protected species, but has a real interest in badgers. And she became involved with badgers since volunteering for the Scottish Distribution Survey in 2008, and is now the Treasurer and one of the trustees of Scottish Badgers. So thank you very much, Laura. Are you happy to take us on a badgering journey this afternoon?
I am indeed. Let me see if I can share my screen.
Okay.
Okay, can you see that okay? And you can hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect,
yes,
Laura.
I can hear you.
Good stuff, thank you. Okay, so as Ian said, thank you. I am one of the trustees and treasurer of Scottish Badgers. I started my involvement with them years and years and years ago. And I started off doing voluntary surveying. So Scottish Badgers, we're an independent charity, started in 1999, and we've got 2 contractors, but the rest of the charity is all run purely by volunteers. So you can see that you know, the volunteer initiatives are really, really important for a charity like ours. We're the only charity dedicated purely to the conservation and welfare of badgers. We do a wide range of activities. I'm just going to tell you a wee bit about what we do today, but if you want to have any more information, if you have a look at our website, loads of information on there for you. So surveying is primarily what we do within Scottish Badgers. You can get out and survey on your own. You don't need to know a lot about badgers to start with. If you check out our information hub on our website, we've got tons of information on there about badger biology and ecology, and we talk about field signs that you can look out for. So we'll tell you footprints, what badger dung looks like, what badger sets look like, how to go about doing your survey. And if you have a look on our YouTube channel as well, you see lots of really useful badger videos on there to get you started. We've also produced a good practice guidelines for how to survey for badgers. That's available on our website as well. So if you want to learn more about badger ecology, the survey methods, especially if you're either wanting to go into consultancy or are in consultancy, have a read of that of good practice survey methods. That's really useful, and we touch on data recording and data sharing in there as well, because obviously you're recording all these things, you want to know that your data is being put to good use. We can also provide email support to you, so if you are just getting started in badger surveying and you're not sure what you're seeing, you can send us pictures of things that you find, for example, and we can help you identify them. If you email the info@scottishbadgers.org.uk email address, someone will be able to help you there. And you don't need to be a member of Scottish Badgers to get out and survey on your own like this. Anybody can do it. If you want to get a little bit more involved, you can join one of the local branches. So these are all volunteer-run groups. I've shown you here the areas that these groups operate in. So we're not covering the whole of Scotland just yet, but we do cover quite a wide area. We ask that if you want to join these branches, you can have a single taster session to see if you like it, but then we do require membership for you to attend these events purely for insurance purposes. At the moment, our membership is £20 for annual membership, but we are reviewing student membership rates, so hope to be able to bring in cheaper rates that'll let it hopefully make it a bit more available for people to come out and join us. Lots of information on our website about these groups as well. And if you're in an area that's not on this list, then please drop Emily an email at the info@ email address. Might be that she's got other like-minded people in your area that she can join you up with as well. Might be that you can start a branch. And lots of these branches have got Facebook pages as well, so you're able to see what the guys are up to. And hopefully, if we're coming out of COVID times, then we're able to get out and start serving a little bit more. Obviously, that was all kind of put on hold. But we're hoping that small numbers of people can start getting out again. So once you've been out and you've done your surveys and you've found badger sets or you've found field signs, here's what you can do with them. So you can use our website to submit live sightings, road casualties, sets and possible crimes. So we've got a set recording form that you can download from our website as well. So you'll be able to use that when you go out and do all of your set monitoring. So it's probably not very nice to think of, but we do record all the road casualties that we see, and it's actually really, really useful information. So currently we've got over 10,000 set and live sighting records and over 15,000 road casualty records. So we use these records to help us find areas to focus our surveys on, because quite often we might find a road casualty badger in an area that we didn't know we had badger sets. So we can then ask one of the local branches to go out and maybe concentrate doing a badger survey on that area. And it's been a way that has allowed us to find more sets and overall be able to increase our knowledge of the distribution of badgers in Scotland. So we keep all these records. We also can provide records to interested parties, such as consultants, when they're asking for data searches for a fee. That's a really valuable income stream for Scottish Badgers as well. If surveying isn't your bag, I know that we're talking a lot about surveying and ways to upskill and things like that. There's loads of other ways you can help Scottish Badgers as well. So here's just a few of them. On our website, we've got some current opportunities as well. So, for example, at the moment, we're looking for some volunteers to help lead our events team, and also fundraising volunteers. So loads of other ways to get involved. If you want to survey, you can be a bit more involved. We've got an annual conference as well every October, which last year was online, but it was a really great way for people to virtually meet other like-minded people and learn more about badgers. Thank you for listening. As Ian said, if you've got any questions, put them in the chat and then I'll be happy to answer those at the end for you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Laura. And of course, I'd imagine badger cubs will be shortly above ground, which will make set watching far more exciting and engaging if you can see badgers playing on the program. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Laura. We're now going to move on to Anthony McCluskey, who works for Butterfly Conservation. He is the Helping Hands for Butterflies project officer, And his current role involves training new volunteers to identify, record, and monitor butterflies, and creating and managing habitats for insects. He's previously worked with the Bumblebee Conservation Trust and came to insects through his undergraduate and his master's project. And during his dissertations, he studied bumblebees in orchards and farmlands, and since then has been dedicated to public engagement around insects. So, Anthony, I'd like to hand over to you now if you're ready.
Okay, so you just give me 1 minute. I just need to start making my screen big,
No
and then
problem.
we'll get started then. So
And
if somebody can just confirm that you can see my screen full size and all the rest, then I'll start. Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Yes, this is just about how we can record and monitor butterflies and why it's relevant to recent graduates as well and some of your future careers. And we record butterflies because it really helps us understand changes in their populations, and that's really the key to conserve them. So for example, some people might say statements like, you don't see as many pearl-bordered fritillaries here anymore, and that might be true, but there's not a lot of data behind that unless we collect that data. So here's our map of pearl-bordered fritillary records going back to the early 1970s, showing basically all the light blue circles there show sites where it's not found anymore, and you can see the sites where it's still found, which is really useful. We can see it's disappearing from its range, but we can also track its abundance, so we know that the abundance and the distribution of that species is going down. And we know that other species are going up. So things like the ringlets are increasing in their range and in their abundance. So we know that they're of less conservation concern to butterfly conservation. So that helps us really inform our conservation choices and the work that we do. And we can also then look at how things like climate change and land use change will affect different species of butterfly by looking at how those changes have affected them before. And this helps us to produce reports such as the State of UK Butterflies 2015 report that used records from over 2,500 weekly transects, and I'll talk more about transects coming up, as well as 800 wider countryside butterfly survey locations and 11 million other records of butterflies. So really all of this data goes into these reports, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the efforts of volunteers, many of whom give around 80,000 days of effort every year to help us collectively. So yes, it informs our conservation work. These can be important indicators of climate change and other land use changes. Collectively, it's called taking nature's pulse. So we could combine it with records of bees and bats and birds and things like that to see how nature in the UK is doing. And it's just really good for us as well. So getting outside to record butterflies on a sunny day, I think is really good for our mental and physical health. And no offense to the bat people, but going out at nighttime and walking around and then sleeping all day is not something that I'm interested in at all. I'd much rather be out in the sun during the day. So really it's good for us to get outside and record butterflies. And so really what you're after is a biological record. This involves having the date, the location, and the species name. And I'll talk more about how we get those in different ways coming now. And really to split it up into our two main methods of recording butterflies, we have what's called casual records, and we have monitoring of butterflies. So I'll talk first about casual records. Really, probably the easiest way to get some of those records is through an online system now called iRecord. This is used for many different taxa, but it's worth checking with the recording scheme to see if they're involved in it. I know you can send in bee records, dragonflies, grasshoppers, and many beetles and things like this through iRecord now. So basically, if you haven't engaged with it already, I'd highly recommend getting involved with iRecord. It basically allows citizen scientists to send in your sightings. They go to a central place. They can be checked by the experts and then used in conservation and mapping work, and you can use it for different taxa. The website there, if you just Google iRecord, you can get involved that way. You need to make an account and a password, but that will then allow you to use the apps that I'm going to talk about now. So I'm not going to dwell on this too much. Basically, we've got a free app called iRecord Butterflies. This app is due to be relaunched completely anytime now. So probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to have a completely different looking app. So I won't show you how to use this one, but you can download it and have a look at it on your phone now. It's called iRecord Butterflies. You can get it for Android and Apple, and it's completely free. It's really good for records on the go because it can find you in the middle of nowhere. It uses GPS, so even if you don't have a phone signal, it will find you and it can use your location for the record. You can submit single records or multiple records, and it's got a free butterfly ID guide in it. So just in your pocket, you could be having a free guide to all the butterflies of the UK, and you can filter that for Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland or England, so you can see what species are likely to be found locally. So if you're just getting into butterflies, that's a really good start in helping you with your ID and starting to submit records. But then just to touch on monitoring, this is where we get the really important data, and this might be more relevant to some of the schemes that you might be using if you're working in a consultancy. So we got the UK BMS, which are weekly surveys, and I'll just talk more about those now. Again, this gives us the best information on population changes over time. We can track changes in the local population, but it also contributes to the national and regional picture in butterfly trends. And yes, we get over 80,000 days of effort from volunteers every year from the UK BMS. And what at its heart, what it is a weekly butterfly count along a fixed route. Here's an example here. This is of Philin Bing, just outside Stirling. You can see it's a route with different sections. They can be up to 15 different sections, usually based upon habitat. And you walk that route, that exact route, every single week during suitable weather. We can provide training on what the suitable weather is and all the rest. And we have ones which are all species, so they run every week from the beginning of April till the end of September. And we also have single species ones which run through the flight period of target species like grayling or small blue or dingy skipper, so because they only fly for certain periods. So that's really what its heart at its heart, that's what it is. And the reason why it's relevant possibly to you would be that it's a great way to learn about widespread butterflies. This is good for basic baseline reports. So if you were to do a basic ecological survey of a site and you wanted to go out and record the insects, butterflies are a really easy group to record. They're easy to see, fairly easy to separate, and they're not that difficult. The important thing is though to get them at the right time of year. So again, if you become familiar with butterflies, you'll know what time of year to do suitable surveys, so you're capturing all of the species at a site. There's a small tortoiseshell, one that you might recognize already. But as well as that, you've got opportunities to learn about the ecology of rare species, and this might be, again, more relevant to some planning applications, such as for the small blue butterfly, marsh fritillary, and pearl-bordered fritillary. Pearl-bordered fritillary especially occasionally is relevant to planning applications, especially with wind farms and roads. So it's one that we come across regularly for applications like that. So getting to know the pearl-bordered fritillary, what its habitat is, when it flies, things like that are extremely relevant to some of the work that you might be doing. And there's the marsh fritillary, so it's quite a rare species only found on the west coast of Scotland, but again, relevant for some of the projects out there. And when it comes to things like that, marsh fritillary, for example, you can survey it in two different ways. You could be going out in the summertime to look for adults, but then you could be also going in autumn and even early spring to look for the caterpillars of that species, which live in a web. So you could be learning how to count larval webs of marsh fritillaries, which is a specialist subject for many people. So getting involved can give you opportunities like that perhaps other people don't always come across. There's other side benefits to recording butterflies, including better familiarity with wildflowers and other insects and habitat types. So it opens up a whole world to you. And finally, then, just on my final page, I'm just going to leave this open for a minute, and I can put it in the chat box. But if you're interested in recording, that's the address there, the butterflyconservation.org/recording. But also, there's some free events coming up. So all our events are listed on the page that you can see there. And I've got 5 events coming up in May, which are butterfly ID and recording workshops, where I'll be showing you how to identify and record butterflies using the app and the websites. So thank you very much for listening, and I'm just going to hand back over to Ian.
That's great. Thanks very much, Anthony. Yes, hopefully once this cold weather leaves our shores, there'll be more butterflies out to go and start counting, I hope, and recording. And I shall leave it to Claudia to defend herself when it comes to bat surveys and to make sure that they're not maligned in terms of surveying for them. So that was great, Anthony. Hopefully there'll be some questions coming up for you in a moment. So if Elaine's just going to keep an eye in the chat. Okay, so our next speaker up is Jim McIntosh. Jim has been a member of the BSBI Scotland for 16 years, and he's responsible for supporting members and volunteers by promoting recording projects like those he's going to speak about now, and also providing data to the NBN where it can be used for conservation science and research, and also organising lots of recording events and conferences like the Scottish Botanist Conference, which is the biggest annual meeting of botanists in Scotland. That sounds great, Jim. I presume that's going to be sometime in the future, later on?
It's usually held at the very beginning of November at the Botanic Gardens in Edinburgh. Of course, last year it was online, but this year it might be online and a physical event.
Brilliant. Okay. So plenty of time
everybody is
people.
welcome.
Brilliant. So plenty of time to book your space.
Exactly.
Brilliant. Okay, if you want to share your screen now, Jim, I shall go back onto mute.
How does that look?
Perfect, and I can hear you as well. So it's all yours. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ian. Okay, hello everyone. I've got 2 recording initiatives to tell you about today. The first one is, yeah, okay, here we go. Is the National Plant Monitoring Scheme, which was launched in 2015 and replaces the Countryside Survey, which you might have heard of. So this is really the main project to monitor change in the UK. It's habitat-based, carried out by volunteers across the UK. We're always looking out for more volunteers. We'd love if you'd like to get involved. It collects data to provide an indication of changes in our plant abundance and diversity, and that helps us assess the health of our habitats. And of course, having healthy habitats is crucially important to all those butterflies that Anthony's just been talking about, and everything else that depends on our habitats. It is suitable for botanists of all level. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. So you don't have to be an expert, you just need to be keen to learn. So how does it work? Well, it's a scientific survey. So you'd be randomly allocated a convenient 1 km square to visit. You've asked to visit twice in a year. It takes about a day, including traveling time, to do each visit. Plus there's perhaps a day or 2 training and preparation. There's loads of training materials available. I'll come on to that in a second. So for each square that you do, you're probably talking about 3-4 days in total. Of course, you can do more than 1 square, and over time, once you get the hang of the method, it gets easier and quicker. So within each of those 1K squares, we ask you to record around 5 plots in semi-natural habitats. And this little screen grab here shows the unallocated squares in blue, which are largely in the north and west, but there's a fair few around the central belt and near Aberdeen and Inverness. So yeah, anyone can take part who's interested in plants or is keen to learn. The 3 different levels of participation. The sort of basic level, wildflower level, you need to be able to identify 25 to 30 odd species in each habitat. So this is certainly a bit hard. It's more of a challenge than butterflies. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Anthony, I think there's about 30 butterfly species in Scotland. There's loads more flowering plant species. And those indicator species in each habitat are distinctive species, which allow us to monitor the changes in that particular habitat. So the crucial thing is being able to identify the habitats as well as the species, because you look for a different set of species in each habitat. And these are some of the things you'll need to take in the field. Also, a good wildflower guide. The NPS app is an app designed, a free app designed to enter the data directly into an OS. I want a detailed OS map, hand lens, And there are other things which you find useful, like the Seek app, which helps identify plants just by photographing them or taking a video of them. That can be an enormous help, pointing in the right direction. How to take part? Well, you check out this website, the National Plant Monitoring Scheme .org.uk website, where there is a load of fantastic resources, loads of free training events, not so much plant ID training, although that there is a lot of written material, species ID guides and so on, but there's a lot of workshops on the method and identifying the habitats. So check out the website, lots of interesting stuff, quite a challenge, but great fun. And we're just one of many partners involved in this initiative. Plant Life, who you'll have heard of, UK CEH, BRC, JNCC, it's a whole long list. FSC helped run a lot of the training courses and provided by them. Okay, so that's the first of the two recording initiatives I was going to tell you about. The second is much less structured, but really interesting. It's called the Urban Flora of Scotland project, and it aims to demonstrate how urbanisation influences plant life and how changes in distribution is occurring in response to climate change. So a little case example here. This species of grass, pictured in the bottom left there, is called waterbent. Here is growing along a pavement edge in Edinburgh, and is one of the most rapidly spreading non-native plants in Britain now. You can see it's become quite abundant near built-up areas in London, South East, Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool. It's just beginning to get a toehold. It's becoming quite common in Edinburgh, Glasgow. There's a few occurrences further north as well. So really, really interesting things happening here. And our plant distributions are changing all the time. That is not static. You might think it is, but our flora is changing continuously. Another example is lots of coastal plants have decided they quite like growing in the salted central reservations and margins of roads, and they're spreading along the motorway system and road system from south to the north. Right now, if you're driving along any motorway, if you look in the central reservation, there's very often a haze of pink flowers, and that's Danish scurvy grass. And so those are sort of changes we're hoping to pick up, because these species usually end up in town centres, having motored all the way up a road system. So the method is very simple. It's to record wild plant species along self-selected transects in urban areas with simple abundance and habitat information. And wild plants here, what we're talking about is not ones which have been intentionally planted or sown. These are things that are naturally occurring or native, but not things that the council have put into parks. And we'd like you to record all flowering plants, ferns, and indeed lower plants if you can, but the bottom line here is you can only record species that you're certain about. If you're unsure, there are lots of ways to get help. You can take photographs and send them to iSpot or to the Twitter Wildflower Hour and ask for help. Yeah, so only record if you're absolutely sure. Urban areas, Well, you can Google to find out which towns and cities are above 1,000. In most cases, it's pretty clear, but also smaller towns and villages, it might be less obvious. In terms on the ground, a rough rule of thumb is the urban area stops at 30 mile limit. And we use simple DAFOR, that's dominant, abundant, frequent, occasional, rare, within 10 meters of the habitat. And the habitats are, there's a very simple habitat classification system based on this book and with details on the website. Now, this is a joint project with our sister society, the Botanical Society of Scotland, and they've set up the website with loads of useful information about the project, how to join, detailed information about what to record, those habitats. There's recording forms. Now, the data, not only are we asking you to record the data, but we're asking you to enter the data into iRecord, which has already been mentioned. Unfortunately, we haven't set up an app to do that. So you're going to have to record on paper and then come home and enter the data. Once you've registered, directly record on your device. So 3 steps: visit the project website, buff up on methods, download the recording forms, register an iRecord, and get out there. Preferably get out with other people. Find out about local groups. So check out the other pages on the BSS and also the BSBI websites. Find out if there's a local group in your area and make contacts with that group. Ask to be put on their mailing list and get out. It's the best way to learn botany is to get out with other botanists in the field. But they are a very friendly lot, and it's great fun. Right, this is a little advert for some training workshops. We're currently taking bookings for 2 workshops: a grass ID workshop for grass beginners using fresh specimens, which we'll post out in advance. It's what's experimental. Not done anything like this before, but that sounds quite fun. And we're also taking bookings for a general complete beginner's guide to plants and plant identification by recognizing the families, based on this little book pictured at the bottom right there, called The Pocket Guide to Wildflower Families. Later on in the year, we also hope to hold a workshop on identifying composite flowers. That's a little bit more advanced. All those details are on the bsbi.org/Scotland page, including details of local groups. So do check that out. And if you've got any questions, I'd be delighted to answer them later. Okay, thank you.
Oh, that was great. Thanks a lot for that, Jim. So 2 great projects for everybody to get involved with there. I always find botany quite intimidating given the number of species that are there. So signing up to any initiative there with the plants and getting involved in some of the training workshops will certainly help you upskill. And like Anthony mentioned as well, there's also apps that you can use to promote your learning. So great. I hope, Jim, you'll have lots of questions to answer and many people signing up for some botany. I might even be tempted myself, but maybe. That'd
be great. You'd be welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much. Right. Thanks, Jim. We're moving on now to Claudia Gebhardt, who is the Scottish Bat Officer with the Bat Conservation Trust and also a Principal Ecologist with Caledonian Conservation. Claudia has many years' experience as an ecologist, mainly working in nature conservation and consultancy. And in that, she's been active in bat conservation for 15 years and during that time has managed to travel to a long list of countries, which includes Germany, New Zealand, Poland, the Netherlands, and Zambia. So bats obviously allow you to travel quite far. So in her role as the Scottish Bat Officer, Claudia is supporting local bat groups in Scotland, providing bat survey skills training, and enthusing people about bats and engaging with people in taking part in bat surveys. So Anthony, I'm sure Claudia will be delighted to have you signing up as well for any initiative with the Bat Conservation Trust. And she also works at the Field Studies Council and the Mammal Society through promoting bats. Okay, that was quite an introduction, Claudia. So if I can now hand over to yourself, if you're happy to share your screen, and you can take us on a nocturnal journey. And you might have to come off with mute as well.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Claudia, and I'm going to talk about the National Bat Monitoring Program, which is a program run by the Bat Conservation Trust in partnership with quite a lot of other organizations. So why do we monitor bats actually? There is evidence of long-term decline in quite a few of our UK species of bats, and they're enormously important for ecosystem health. So bats are a good indicator of biodiversity and environmental quality, like many of the other species mentioned today. And bats also face a lot of pressure from our human activities. So the National Bat Monitoring Program was established in 1996, so 25 years ago. It's been running for a long time, collecting data. And the aim is to produce annual species population trends. So each species of bat, we can basically follow more or less what the population is doing in the UK. We can then identify rapid declines and also inform conservation action and identify reasons why the population is changing. And that can then influence environmental policy in the UK. So I've got two examples here on the right. The top one is the common pipistrelle, which we get in Scotland as well. And the numbers, the population numbers have actually been going up. The species is doing quite well and the numbers are increasing. The Benton's bat is also a species in Scotland. The population numbers have been steady since we started monitoring the species. And since the National Bat Monitoring Program started, we had over 3,500 volunteers taking part. In Scotland, we've been able to track the populations of 3 species so far. So that's common pipistrelle, soprano pipistrelle, and Benton's bat. We have probably 9 species in Scotland. A lot is not known, so that's why we need everybody's help basically to monitor bats and get involved, that we can collect more data and basically inform conservation action. Our statistics will of course be better the more monitoring sites we have. And what can you do? If you take part in the National Bat Monitoring Program, there are a range of surveys that you can undertake. And they are aimed basically from the basic level to a more specialist level, but anybody can take part. The sunset sunrise surveys are for absolute beginners. All you have to be able to do is basically recognize a bat when it flies around. The roost count survey is another type of bat monitoring survey, and anybody who knows of a roost and can count bats can take part in this one. Then we've got the waterways and field surveys, and both of these, if you participate, you will need a little bit of experience using a bat detector and some skills in identifying bats. And then the hibernation surveys, you will actually need to be or be accompanied by a licensed surveyor. I will talk a little bit more about the surveys because they are amazing to take part in, even though you have to go out by night. The sunset sunrise survey runs from April to September, so it's perfect for beginners, as I said, and you record bats, and you can also record other nocturnal animals. You go out at dusk and you count bats for a given amount of time. The specifics of all of these surveys you will find out when you sign up on the Bat Conservation Trust website. You'll find the exact timings and the descriptions how to undertake them. The sunset sunrise survey is really, if you want to try out, if you're interested in undertaking bat surveys, you can do it from anywhere, your garden, your window, anywhere where you can potentially spot bats. The next survey type, the roost count. So it might happen that if you do a sunrise or sunset survey, you actually realize that there's a bat roost nearby, and you can move on to do a roost count survey, or if you have a neighbor that has a bat roost or you know anybody. And all you need to do is count the bats that come out of the roost. You do that over 2 evenings in May, June, or July, depending on the species. So you have to know the species of bat in the roost, actually. The waterway survey is one of the slightly more advanced surveys. These take place in August, and you need some basic bat detector skills because we're looking for one particular species of bat, the Dobendens bat. You will either be given a transect of about 1 kilometer along a water course, or you can choose your own and plot a transect route yourself, actually. And you need to put 10 points on the transect where you count the bats. So 10 stopping points, basically. And the field survey, slightly more advanced again, that takes place in July over 2 evenings. You need a little bit more bat detector skills because we're looking for common and soprano pipistrelle, but also in Scotland, specifically noctule bat. You get a 1 kilometer square and you do a transect survey in an approximate triangular shape. Again, you can be given a survey site or you can design your own, actually. And my very favorite survey type is the hibernation survey. So this is quite an advanced survey. You look for any bat species you can find and count them. You need to have a licensed surveyor with you. So the best way to go about this is to contact your local bat group, actually, and they usually organize hibernation surveys. The data from all of these surveys is submitted on our website. You basically sign up on the website and you submit the data through the survey forms on the website. We also have some workshops where you can develop your skills to undertake these surveys. The beginner workshop is called Discovering Your Local Bats. And we also have a National Bat Monitoring Project Level 1 and Level 2 course, where you basically learn how to use a heterodyne bat detector and how to distinguish the different species of bats that these surveys are aimed at. And then there's various advanced surveys, for example, how to use sound analysis software. Again, how can you help? So if you sign up to the National Bat Monitoring Surveys on our website, you set up your account, and that is also where you will submit your data once you've undertaken a survey. And there is a Facebook group for the NBMP volunteers, actually, where you can exchange information. And you can, of course, join the Bat Conservation Trust. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Claudia. Well, I think you've certainly done bats justice. There seems to be a number of surveys that people can get involved in. And I guess it's relevant at this time to say that many people on the CIEEM committee who are here today actually have bat licenses. And it takes a long time to get a bat license. So what I would encourage people who have an interest in bats is to get started as soon as possible, because you want to build up that experience. And if you want to move into consultancy, it's certainly a useful skill to have. I see there's a couple of questions on bat detectors, Claudia, so hopefully we will pick up on that point when we come back to the question and answer session. Okay, but thank you very much. We're now going to move on to Steve Willis, if Steve is there. Now, Steve is the Development Engagement Officer for the British Trust for Ornithology in Scotland, and his role involves training and supporting volunteers taking part in the BTO surveys and schemes, as well as general promotion of the BTO and its work. He has a background in species conservation and environmental interpretation, and has worked in the sector in Scotland for 20 years. So, Steve, can I hand over to you now to take us on an avian journey?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Can you just confirm you're seeing and hearing everything okay?
Yes, I can, as long as I'm not expected to identify the species.
All right. No, don't worry. That's fine.
Okay.
Right. Afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me along. I'm just going to take you on a brief whirlwind tour of a few of the key schemes and surveys of the British Trust for Ornithology, or BTO. I'm based in the BTO Scotland offices, which under normal circumstances are based at Stirling University, but of course haven't been for the last year. My contact details are there, and they'll be on at the end of the presentation as well. So it would appear that we've got quite a competitive market for volunteer surveyors, which is a very good thing for all concerned. So why participate in BTO surveys and schemes? Well, it's a very, very good way to develop your skills and experience. You're only going to improve your knowledge of birds, or anything for that matter, through participation. It's a fantastic way to become a citizen scientist. Citizen science is something we're very good at in Britain, and it's something that we're really keen to help people with. It's fun, or at least it very much should be. We're all aware we've had a very difficult year mentally and physically, and time in nature, taking part in these sorts of schemes should and can help with your physical and mental well-being. And also taking part in the BTO surveys and schemes contributes very valuable data that has an absolutely meaningful impact to conservation within Scotland and the wider UK as well. So it's definitely worth getting involved. If you're interested in getting involved, the best place to look is follow this URL here, and I can put that in the chat later if you'd like. That takes you to a range of projects across the whole of the UK. It gives you the title of the survey. You can click on learn more there and find out more about it. But I would also, it's wise to have a read of the time and skill needed section, because as Ian said, kind of be aware of the amount of time you can commit. And that also tells you what sort of level of skill and expertise and background knowledge you need to take part in the survey, because it does vary hugely, which is really, really good. One of our simplest and arguably our most popular at the minute surveys is the Garden Birdwatch, which is a year-round survey of wildlife in your garden. It was celebrated its 25th anniversary last year, and as a result of that, there was a huge promotion of it. The annual fee that there normally is to charge was waived, and we saw participation of that absolutely rocket through lockdown. We've got just under 500 participants across Scotland, room for a lot more. What is Garden Birdwatch? Well, it's simply a community of people monitoring garden birds and other wildlife. You don't need to have a massive garden, even if you've just got a small green space that you can view from where you live. So long as you can continue to survey that, then great. You don't even need to have feeders there. It's a very straightforward survey. Just a case of a weekly list of what you've seen, maximum counts if you can manage it. And then it's a year-round survey. You input that data weekly, just really quickly and simply through the website. So really good thing to do. And it's really nice. The more you participate in it, you see seasonal changes in your garden and various other things as you go. If you are lucky enough to have a garden, or even access to some nice green space nearby, you might have been able to put up nest boxes, in which case you might have these guys living alongside you. Oh, sorry, I stopped that audio. That's blue tits, and they very readily take to nest boxes, as well as, of course, nesting in natural cavities round about. Nesting neighbours is simply monitoring of nests in your garden if you have one, or even in your local area, just around your local park, gardens, whatever, and get to know what's around about. Of course, it is important we put the welfare of the birds first and foremost, so we do have a code of conduct so that you minimise disturbance to the birds and follow best practice while monitoring these breeding birds. And it's simply a case of recording what species is nesting, and then the relevant dates for any eggs laid, when those eggs hatch, how many chicks there are, and then if you can pin down fledging as well. So it's a fantastically rewarding thing to do. And of course, it's very, very, very valuable information because it's telling us about the earliest life stage of that bird population. We've got lots of other surveys and schemes that follow birds through their life, but certainly this stage is very, very, very useful to know. BTO are also lead partner in the heronry census. This is the longest running census of any bird species in the world. It was first established in 1928, so it's fast approaching its centenary. And heronries are relatively straightforward birds to survey because they build these massive stick nests. And if you've got a broadleaf woodland before the leaves emerge, then it's relatively straightforward to see which nests are occupied and get an estimate of that. There's heronries all over Scotland. We've got around about 80, 90 participants volunteering at the moment. As I say, there's always room for more. You can find out more on the website. And it's an estimate. The nice thing about the heronry census, you only do 3 visits early on in the year. And it's an estimate of what you think is happening. It's hard to pin down exactly what's going on at heronries. That's why we accept estimates. So it's relatively straightforward in Scotland. There's only 1 species of heron breeding at the moment, but little egrets are probably going to become more common over time. But yeah, you've only got 1 species to look out for. So relatively straightforward and a nice straightforward one to participate in. BTO are also lead partner of the Wetland Bird Survey, a survey where you might pick up on these lovely little birds. That's the kingfisher. It's got a kind of patchy distribution in Scotland, but you can find them if you go looking. And the Wetland Bird Survey is, as it sounds, is monitoring water bird populations. We have incredibly significant water bird populations. Think of the number of ducks, geese and waders that come to Britain, especially in wintertime. It's very, very significant. And so it's important we monitor changes within those populations. We monitor estuaries, lochs and other wetlands. It's a visit just once a month. The core period is over the winter when we have larger numbers of wetland birds, but we do also appreciate people surveying their webs sector on a year-round basis. And it's simply a count of all the water birds. Now that's going to vary massively depending on the site you visit. It might be a tiny little pond with 2 coots and a moorhen. It could be a massive complex estuary or reed bed with very large numbers of birds, maybe counted by a team of quite expert birders. Whatever you're interested in, whatever your background, there will be a wetland bird survey area for you. BTO also helped to coordinate the breeding bird survey, and this is, you might describe it as the gold standard bird survey in Britain. It's monitoring commoner UK breeding birds. There are over 4,000 sites surveyed across the whole of the UK. There's 605 in Scotland. At the moment, in fact, it's gone up to 625. We've got just under 400 volunteers that participate in that in Scotland, and it's really, really valuable data. The counts are compared between years and we can produce trends. At the moment in Scotland, we can produce trends for 69 species. The more we increase participation, the more we increase coverage, the number of trends that we can start to look at will increase with number of participants. And how are BBS data used? Well, they can be used simply in your local bird report at the county level. But they produce trends that and indicators that are used to influence government as well. So they really do go on to direct and measure conservation action. If you're familiar with the State of UK Bird Report, that's just come through, that's just been published recently. Most of that data comes from BBS surveys, not all of it, but a significant amount of it. So it really does make a difference. And BBS data is used in applied research, so it goes on to feed into research into climate change, it influences agri-environment schemes, and does have a direct impact on our birds and our landscape. So just briefly touching on other BTO surveys and schemes. BTO is a big organisation and is largely led by ecology. So we do cuckoo tracking. We've got cuckoos are flooding their way north back into the country at the moment, some with satellite tags. Take part in the woodcock survey. We run the nest records scheme. We run the waterways breeding bird survey. You've probably heard of the bird ringing scheme, that's BTO. There's a garden wildlife health project. And we now got this new one that only launched a month or so ago, which is the Volunteer Mountain Hare Survey, which obviously is not a bird, but can incorporate a survey of upland birds and upland mammals at the same time. We actually have some training coming up about breeding bird survey and the mountain hare survey that's coming up next week, Monday and Tuesday evenings and Wednesday and Thursday mornings. Drop me an email if you're interested in joining in on that. It's free and it's pretty straightforward to register as well. And just very briefly, I know I'm kind of pushing my time here. BTO runs a voluntary recording scheme called BirdTrack. It's a recording system. It's not a survey, but it's a very useful way through a smartphone app or through the website to store and record your records. Find out what other people have been seeing, which is very handy as well. And it's a central database of your sightings. Everything is logged and not lost. Do consider getting involved with that. So that is me. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll be happy to take any questions. Contact details are there, and our Twitter and Facebook details are there too. So thank you for that.
We're going to move on now to a recorded talk by Kirsty Crawford. Unfortunately, Kirsty couldn't be with us today, but she has sent in a recording. And Kirsty is the Senior Project Manager for the Citizen Science section of the Conservation Volunteers and is running the Hogwatch Scotland, a 3-year hedgehog conservation project, working with local council areas, schools and volunteers to assess and monitor hedgehog populations in key areas.
Hi everyone, my name is Kirsty Crawford and I work for the Conservation Volunteers on our hedgehog conservation project called Hogwatch Scotland. So I'll be talking a little bit about hedgehog recording in Scotland and how to get involved. This is part of a much wider and long-running citizen science project called Scotland Counts, which I head up, which has the overall aim to provide every community and individual in Scotland with the skills and training to carry out and understand citizen science. So trying to make it a little bit more accessible, providing the knowledge and tools needed on a huge variety of projects, from air pollution to flooding to mammals to birds and more. So Hogwatch Scotland sits inside that big sort of body of work with 5 main aims. 1, to survey and map hedgehog populations in Scotland to understand more about their distribution. And we do this in 2 ways, with tunnel surveys and also in person using torchlight on spotlighting surveys. We carry out practical conservation changes and try and do pre and post surveys to understand a little bit more how much impact native hedgerow planting is having on hedgehogs. There's a lot of awareness raising and public events and training. We record hedgehog sightings in Scotland and we ask for data to be sent through to us to add to a larger UK map. And we're also trying to create a legacy, so creating hedgehog champions, which are part, again, of a much wider UK project to continue the work after this specific project has come to an end. So the reason for this existing, specifically in Scotland, we're the only dedicated hedgehog monitoring project. Last summer, hedgehogs were moved up in terms of level of protection to being vulnerable to extinction. So in the yellow category that you can see there, this is on the IUCN Red List for Britain's mammals. Numbers can be hard to quantify, but at the sort of last count in the State of Britain's Hedgehogs report, there were around 1.5 million left in the UK, about 310,000 in Scotland, and that's down 46% in 12 years. And specifically for our project, which began with a target area around Glasgow city centre, if you can see here, the sort of official records were pretty poor. If you take any given year, say 2014 with the yellow, we have about 6 or 7 official records in quite a large radius from the city centre. So hedgehogs were under-recorded for sure in this country. A couple of reasons for decline and for our monitoring project. One focuses on the hedgehog diet. So hedgehogs are omnivorous. They'll eat pretty much anything, but they do, as you can see, the bulk of their diet is made up of invertebrates. So the study was for stomach contents of roadkill hedgehogs, where 6 sort of key species came out on top: beetles, worms, slugs, earwigs, caterpillars, millipedes. So a lot of ground dwelling invertebrates. And the problem comes with the simplification of our suburban landscapes. Hedgehogs become more reliant in areas where humans also thrive, so very comfortable around housing estates and developments. But a whole myriad of problems start to creep in there, including sort of decking, monoblocking, paving driveways, roads, cutting up and fragmenting the habitat. So there's a much less opportunity for those invertebrate species to thrive and for the hedgehogs to find the diet that they need to survive. And there's also a lot less nesting opportunities. Nesting is hugely key to a hedgehog's lifestyle. They have simple daytime nests during the summer, which can be as simple as a tussock of grass, which makes them slightly more vulnerable to strimming and mowing injuries. But in the hibernation season that we're not long out of, hedgehogs need a really strong laminated structure that you can see on the left-hand side. So they have a preference for leaf type, which was quite interesting in another study that was done many years ago now. The absence of hedgehogs in some areas could be due to the absence of the right tree type and leaf size. So they prefer the kind of intermediate, the medium sizes, things like beech, and the fruit trees, apple, cherry and oak trees. So sycamore, horse chestnut, far too big. Things like birch were too small. So they want to create this tight laminated structure around them that's a nice humid environment throughout the hibernation season. And it can be something as simple as this area of woodland supporting over 10 hedgehogs each winter. But without the presence of those right tree species, or the removal of the key tree species, we also find ourselves with more problems. The third thing is the sort of the opening up of landscape and the connectivity that we find. This radio tracking study was done over 12 nights, and you can see, just to put it into context here, the purple line, that's around a full 18-hole golf course. So this specific individual with a male hedgehog used almost the entire area with key sort of centres of activity for feeding and foraging throughout those nights. So the difference is huge if you think of the average UK garden, and then to this area that was used, which is pretty average, was over 30 hectares in less than 2 weeks. So we tend to see that hedgehogs will become reliant on supplementary feeding in back gardens, but that there is a tendency to not provide enough space to open up the landscape. And there's one really simple way that we can do that, which is sort of one of the main basic things to help hedgehogs is to connect up the landscape and create what we call hedgehog highways. So there's a massive campaign about this at the minute. A 13 by 13 centimetre hole, that is the sort of perfect size, which is small enough for most pets not to get through. And the idea is that we can not just have this in one garden, but to link through neighbourhoods. And because hedgehogs are starting to thrive more in urban areas, that we do have the power to help. So we can open up the landscape quite simply, trying to create wildlife corridors for hedgehogs to move freely. With our specific project, you can, well, the main thing you can do is to report your sightings, which we'll come on to, but we have a monitoring project. So I talked about the spotlighting surveys. So this is a kind of example about what we take you through. So we provide full training. It's been a little bit tricky at the minute with the pandemic and not being able to bring large groups of people together, but we're hoping for May and certainly September 21 to get these back on track. So you can sign up as a volunteer. You can help us to weigh, to sex, to measure hedgehogs. They are tagged just on the crown of their head with an individual identifying number, which we use to monitor populations in the future. And these take part in key areas throughout Scotland. So I'll provide my details at the end, and you can send me an email if that's something that you want to be involved in. We have a habitat improvement programme where we're mainly focused on planting more areas of native hedgerow, so you can volunteer for the practical element. So as well as sort of in personal and private spaces creating hedgehog highways, we encourage these in public spaces like school grounds and in local parks, and there's a project in university campuses as well, which I'll talk about. So like I mentioned, hedgehog records, submitting directly to us is one of the best ways to help. If you think back to that map where there was about 7 records in a total of 1 year in quite a large area, we really want people to be on the lookout And the simplest way to do that is to email through to us. So for specifically Scottish records, my address is here, and we simply ask for the grid reference or the postcode location. So the OS Locate app for smartphones is one of the best ways to do this. It's free, you can get it right to your phone, and wherever you are, it will tell you your grid reference and the status of the hedgehog. So was it alive, was it dead, or was it a victim of roadkill? And to email those through to me. There is a much kind of wider project that we do feed into, which is called Hedgehog Street, where there is an online portal where you can upload results, you can upload photos there as well for any sightings. For the Hogwatch Scotland project, it really does help to come to me direct, but there is also this way of uploading online and the data ends up in the same place. This map here, which is called the Big Hedgehog map, you can upload live sightings, also dead sightings of hedgehogs. The blue represents hedgehog holes that were created. So this is a great way to try and work out in your area, in your neighbourhood, how you can connect up the landscape a little bit more. And it also has some symbols for regional projects. And we are on there with a green triangle. So photos, they always help to upload with your records. Here's a small example of just some that have come in over the years. Hedgehogs can be quite tricky to see, being of course nocturnal, so we do have a garden survey methods, which uses a small mammal footprint tunnel to detect presence or absence in your garden over about a 1 week period. So these are the results that we're looking for. These are hedgehog footprints that have been sent back to us. It's a brilliant activity, really interactive to get involved in over the kind of active hedgehog months. So if you're in Glasgow, close to Glasgow, we do have a sort of pick up and drop off service for this. And if you're part of a registered community group, we do have the option to send you a kit. And as with everything, the best thing to do is to just drop me a quick email if you've watched this and you're interested. Going alongside that, we have a training programme. So everything from creating hibernation homes for your area, for your group, for you personally. So we give you the recycled materials, you come along to our workshop that you can see on the right hand side. So these are the hibernation homes, and we're interested to see how much these are being used as well throughout the year. So we help you make them, give you the skills to make them, then you take them away and install them in your garden. And we've got close links with the rescue centres in Scotland, so we're interested also to link up with them to talk about things like the main injury types that they're seeing, how much litter and plastic pollution is a problem for hedgehogs. And we do have a course where we can create a camera trap from components from scratch, which can help you to pop out in your garden. So I'll just finish off. We've had quite a successful few years. We've the records, I think there were over 316 new sightings all across Scotland, like you can see there. So we're interested not just in our Glasgow area, the whole of the country. We've run many, many surveys. We've distributed a lot of those mammal tunnels, which have had positive results for us. And we're really keen to hear from more volunteers. We also have, separate to that, a primary schools education programme, which is doing lots of good work across the country. So something to think about if you know a teacher, or that would be something you're interested in. We'll come to your school to deliver some lessons, and we also plant hedges with schools, with community groups, with local councils. So we're really involved in shaping community action, which is something that I will leave you on, is that the hedgehog as a species is a very good sort of hook, as it were, to shaping a lot of different wildlife actions in your local community, in your area, which I won't go through but are listed there. We've got Hedgehog Awareness Week, which is coming up, lots of events happening for that. And I would recommend to get involved with Hedgehog Friendly Campus if you can. If you're part of a university in the UK, you can work up through accreditation levels to make your campus and your grounds really suitable for hedgehogs. So there's bronze, silver and gold level, and they're doing fantastic work. So do search Hedgehog Friendly Campus if you can. I'll leave you with our social media. You can tag us in on hedgehog sightings if any questions. We've got the TCV CIEEM account for our citizen science projects, TCV Scotland for wider, and I'm on Wild Scot Place. And we do have a website with a resource section for hedgehog resources specific to Scotland as well. So I realise I forgot to put my email address at the end. It's kirsty.crawford@tcv.org.uk. There we go. So take a note down of that. If anything's rung a bell and you do want to get involved in hedgehog recording in Scotland, just drop me a line and I'll be happy to answer any questions. All right, thanks very much for listening.
Okay, that was fantastic. Thank you very much, Kirsty, for delivering that as a recorded talk. I'm delighted we managed to get that working. So well done, Annie. That was great. If you sign up to these initiatives, you will get the training. You will develop great survey skills, species identification. You'll get some networking, and of course, all that in your CV will really look impressive to a potential recruiter, whether they be a part of an NGO or whether you want to go further into science and do a master's, or you want to move into environmental consultancy. Okay, so hopefully the 6 speakers, you will now be inundated with emails and volunteers signing up for your initiatives, and I really hope that is the case. I hope it's been very useful for all the participants. I'd like to thank them for their attendance today. I'd also like to thank the people who have put this together, starting off with the CIEEM members. That's Annie, Claudia, and Elaine. They've done a fantastic job in pulling this all together and also dealing with last-minute IT hiccups. So well done to the 3 of yourselves. And also, most of all, I'd like to extend my gratitude on behalf of CIEEM to all the speakers, Laura, Anthony, Jim, Claudia again, Steve, and Kirsty with her recording. You've really opened our eyes for us to know what is there. And Annie, if you want to unmute everybody, perhaps we can do a COVID type round of applause for all our speakers. Are we all unmuted? No, we should do it in the traditional way of showing our thanks to you all. Okay, so if we can all clap our hands, hopefully it will get through the internet.
Can I do a wee plug in just before we finish off?
Of course, go for it.
So that was a member network event put on by the section committee today, and it's been fantastic. I've learned lots more different speakers today, so thank you all for taking part. Next month we've got another member network event on the Natural Capital Laboratory. It's with another committee members and Chris White, who's the economist. It's looking at natural capital initiative, and it's a real life example in the Highlands where they are rewilding and using lots of innovative technology, drones, artificial intelligence, remote sensing to actually look at the restoration of a part of the Highlands. So that is on the 27th of May. It's free to sign members, and again, just £5 for non-members. So have a look, and we'll hope to see you there. Thank you, Ian.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Annie. Yes, we'll hope to see you all there.